Okay, this is the Baileigh TN-250 notcher, and I'm going to take this piece of tubing. It's a piece of 1.5 inch 109 wall, mild steel, drawn over mandrel tubing, typical roll cage or chassis tubing that you're going to find. Now there's already a notch in this, but I'm going to change this notch from a straight 90 to a 45. I've taken a little bit of slick stick. This is a saw wax, and I put that right on my saw. You can use that. You can use any kind of spray lube. It's always good to lube. It's always good to drop things too, but it's always good to lube things up. So you can't really have too much lube. Yeah, it gets a little messy, but in the long run you wind up with a better cut. And your saws last longer. So we're going to just take this. Now this saw was cutting tubing back in the time of the pharaohs. So it's not as sharp as your saw is going to be, but it's sharp enough. So here we go. Now you notice there's no deflection on this. The saw block is a massive piece of 6061. And with just a moderate amount of pressure, I'm cutting through this tubing. I don't recommend running your saw quite this fast, but it's an old saw, so I'm going to give it a little extra push. Once I get about halfway through, I can kind of back off a little bit. Now when you're notching 45 degrees, you may run into the situation where you actually bottom out. Now I've trimmed this because I actually was notching on a notch, which makes it even more complicated. But what will happen ordinarily is you will not have enough saw length to cut all the way through the tube. So that's not really a problem. Saw as far as you can until it bottoms out, and then you can usually take a pair of pliers and grab the piece and bend it out. Once you've done that, it's just a simple procedure to clean up the notch. And it's actually pretty good because when you're notching this radically, you don't want to crash the saw into the frame of the notcher. Like I almost did, but I didn't. So I get points for that. Anyway, there you go. Now, we'll take this. This is a really incredible vise. This is a 6-jaw rotary vise. There's 3 jaws in the front, 3 jaws in the back. If you take a look, now you can see that's a 45 that's as good as you're ever going to see anywhere under any circumstances. Now, I didn't even clean this tube up. You get out there on your belt sander or a little hand grinder, a little 4.5 inch grinder, you clean up this edge, you take off these burrs, clean the tubing up, and you will have a fit that is as good as anything achievable anywhere on planet Earth. This is the Baileigh TN-250 notcher. It's $595. Yeah, sometimes you can find it a little bit less. Call them up, ask for Shane Henderson. He's the sales guy over there at Baileigh. Tell them you saw it on HRE.com, and believe me, if you notch more than 2 tubes a year, this is the notcher you want to get, because this thing is rock solid. I will go through it a little bit later. If you want, there's an article, a review on our website, www.hre.com, that goes into a lot more detail on this, but for now, I'm just going to tell you, this is one heck of a notcher. It's worth every penny, lasts your lifetime, 3/4 inch steel deck, adjustable height. You can do offset copes. I'll just show you real quick. You sprint car guys are like this. I know you guys don't have the strength to cut completely through a pipe, so that's why you develop this offset cope. But there you go. Perfect offset. There's your 30% extra strength, and this thing does it with ease. You can offset up to 1 inch, which should be enough for anything that you're ever going to do. All right, there you have it. Just so that you can see, a straight notch, same thing. Rock solid, nice, perfect, and again, these ends haven't been cleaned up at all. Okay, I'm going to show you a nice straight notch. We're going to put the tubing in the vise. We're going to tighten the vise down nice and snug. We'll put a little of our lubricant on our saw here. Just wax up our teeth a little bit. You'd be surprised, it really makes a big difference in saw life when you do that. So that's something that I want you to remember. And again, if you like to put a little lubricant on the tube itself, that never hurts. More the better. So here we go. All the while, as I said, there's no deflection, there's no wobble. You take a look at that shaft. And here's something that I want to also make a point of. I said this on another video. I definitely want you to make sure that you remember to lube the shaft itself, because there are bearings in here. So even though they're sealed, they will benefit from a little bit of lubricant and anything. I mean, WD-40. I use PB. You can use sewing machine oil. Just something that will get a little lubrication into those bearings. Now as we pass through the center line, if we got it right, it will cut that little edge there. That leaves you that little knife edge when the coat is done. Here we come through on the other side. And I try not to push too hard because you don't want to slam through your piece of tubing. But that little knife edge here, you're going to take that off with your grinder and just kind of bring that down a little so that when you do weld the pipe, or the tube rather, when you do weld that tube, you're going to have a little bit more meat there rather than welding on a knife edge. It'll give you more strength in your tube and more strength in your construction. I'll clean this up and I'll show you how it looks, and we'll be good to go. Now I've taken the grinder and I've ground down this edge on the other side so you can see how much I take off. It really is a pretty good amount, but you can also see, I hope you can see, that rather than having this knife edge like this, we've actually got a nice bit of thickness there to weld to. This is going to give you a stronger weld. When you do finish this tube up, make sure you take the crud out of the inside, because otherwise what will happen is, as it dries out, you wind up with a rattly roll cage or a rattly chassis, and that just isn't any good at all. So grind these down so that you have some more meat to weld to, and you'll find that your construction goes a lot better. And also, you'll tend not to burn the edge. When it's that close and that fine, it's very difficult to weld and get good penetration on this without winding up with a weld that's actually thin in that area. So give yourself a little bit of room so that you can get in there and fillet that area, and you'll have a really good, nice, tight construction. There you go. Okay, here's something else that's pretty interesting about this. You know, people say, well, you know, man, that's a lot of money for that notcher. And yeah, it's not a cheap notcher. It's a high-end piece. But it does something that not a lot of other notchers can do, and the one other notcher that I know that can do it doesn't do it as easily, and that's notch on a bend. You take this rotary vise, we'll open it up, and you clamp this right down. You don't have to go through any kind of strange motions or anything else, and you can notch that tubing right on a bend. Now that's something that may or may not be important to you, but believe me, the day you need to do it, you'll be wishing you had this tool. So this is something that's pretty unique in the tube notching world, to be able to have a vise that actually tightens on a bend enough to let it notch. So I'm not going to notch this piece because I happen to use it, but I think you get the idea. And that's another really great advantage to this Baileigh TN-250 notcher. I think that you will find the features that it has, the construction, they're all absolutely top quality. This is a notcher that's going to last you the rest of your life. You won't wear this thing out.